Hi guys, welcome back to In Case of Econ Struggles. Welcome to another AP Micro Struggle. Today I'm talking about topic 3.7, which is perfect competition. Specifically, we're going to talk about how firms pick their optimal level of output, given what's happening in the market, and what exactly we mean by perfect competition. So here are the two things you need to know about perfect competition for the AP Micro exam. The first is what exactly is perfect competition? What does it mean to be a perfectly competitive market? What does it mean to be a firm within a perfectly competitive market? And second, how does a perfectly competitive firm choose the level of production that it is going to make? So timestamps are below if you would like to jump around, but let's get right into it. So first, what exactly is perfect competition? The basic idea of perfect competition is that you have many small sellers. They're all selling the same product. There are no barriers to enter this market, and everyone is going to take the price as given. No one can just set the price on their own. So, for example, lots of sellers. If you think about Bill, maybe Bill's a dairy farmer. Bill is producing milk. So, Bill, there are lots of Bills in the world. There are infinitely many Bills. In fact, the world is just covered in dairy farms, and they're all selling a jar of milk. There's no branding on this jar of milk. It's just a plain jar of milk. So, if I buy a jar of milk from the grocery store, I have no idea if Bill's farm produced that milk. I don't know if his friend Deb produced the milk. I don't know who exactly produced the milk. I just know that it's a jar of milk, and I know exactly the quality of a jar of milk. Now, when I say that Bill and his friends are going to take the price as given, what that means is that Bill and his friends don't have any power to set prices. Because I don't know who produces that milk, no one has the power to say raise the price of milk above what everyone else does, because then you're just going to look at the jar of milk and be like, I have no idea why that jar of milk is more expensive than the rest of the jars of milk. So I'm just going to buy the jar of milk that's the cheapest because it's all milk. So just to give you a little graph with some beautifully drawn jars of milk. So maybe here's a jar of milk. I promise these are jars. Here's a bunch of jars of milk. Here's Bill's jar of milk. And then here's maybe Deb. And then a bunch of other people in green. So if everyone is charging $2 for their jar of milk, you come to the grocery store. Again, you're seeing these jars of milk. And Bill says, I would like to make more money. So I'm going to charge $3 for a jar of milk, even though everyone else is buying 2. Congratulations, Bill, you are going to sell 0 jars of milk, because everyone is going to look at these jars of milk and be like, why would I pay $3 when I can pay $2 for the same thing? And notice that is even going to happen if Bill doesn't charge $3, but even if Bill charges $2.01, you're still going to buy the cheaper milk, because again, all the milks look the same. You don't know who produces what milk. They all seem about the same quality, so you choose the jar of milk with the lowest price. And again, there's no barriers to entry, which means that Bill and his friends, if they want to start a dairy farm, the rest of the people already in the dairy industry aren't going to gang up on that person and say, no, you can't join. It's not that the costs to become a dairy farmer are super high. It's really easy. All you need is a cow. And if you've got a cow, you can produce milk. So anyone can really get into the milk industry in this case. And again, we're sort of ignoring regulations from the US government about exactly how to produce milk, quality checks, and all of those things. We're just saying if I have a cow, I can produce milk and I can sell milk in my local grocery store, which means there are no barriers to entry. Now, let's talk about how Bill chooses how many jars of milk to make. Well, because it's perfectly competitive, we're going to have a market supply and a market demand, and it's milk. So as you might imagine, as the price of milk goes up, the quantity goes down. And as the price of milk goes up, people want to make more milk. So we have a supply curve and a demand curve. And from that supply and demand curve, we're going to get an equilibrium price and an equilibrium quantity. But that's going to tell us how much milk is available at the grocery store. It's not going to tell us how much milk Bill specifically is going to make. Now, because everyone's the same, if you knew how many dairy farmers there were, and say you saw that there was, 20 jars of milk, and there are 10 people in this market, 10 dairy farmers, then you could say, well, it's going to be 2 milk per people, because each farmer is going to make 2 milk for 10 farmers to make 20 milk. But let's think about it in a little more complex of a way, because what Bill's going to do is Bill's going to solve his profit maximization problem. He's going to set MR equal to MC, because we know from the profit maximization problem that that's the thing we get tattooed on our forehead when we're thinking about profit maximization. So marginal revenue equals marginal cost. And we're going to get a Q star B. And so how exactly are we going to find Q star B? Well, we need a couple more graphs to help us. So here's the market supply and the market demand video. Just made them a little bigger And what I've done is I've taken the price from this market, which is the perfectly competitive market, and I've just drawn it over to Bill's diagram here. And then I've drawn his short run cost curve, so his marginal cost, his average total cost, and his average variable cost. And again, price is equal to marginal revenue. Bill's going to set marginal revenue equal to marginal cost. He's going to find exactly what that Q star is, and he's going to look and he's going to say at this price, well, the average total cost is below that marginal revenue, so he's making profit and he's going to stay in the market and produce. And again, we sort of talked about this last time. This is sort of a rehash of the shutdown and exit / remain decision tree, where since P star is greater than average total cost, Bill's going to stay in the market, he's going to produce. If the marginal revenue were to fall between average total cost and average variable cost, then Bill would produce in the short run, but he would exit in the long run. And if average variable costs were above P star or above the marginal revenue, then Bill would shut down his dairy farm in the short run and he would exit the business in the long run. Now, we haven't exactly talked about exactly what profit would be in a perfectly competitive market. Doesn't seem like you exactly need to know that, but just as a little tidbit of extra information, because the marginal revenue is above average total cost and all of these farmers are the same, you can imagine Bill might have some friends who don't right now have a cow, and what they're going to do is they're going to get a cow and they're going to enter this market because this looks like they can make positive profit. And so what's going to happen, let me just do this more formally. So because price is greater than average total cost, then people are going to enter this market. So when people enter this market, the supply is going to shift right. So when the supply shifts right, our new supply curve is going to do something like this. So here's S1. And when we go over to S1, what's going to happen is the new price is going to be exactly equal to the average total cost. And when it's exactly equal to the average total cost, when price is equal to average total cost, that means that total profit, which is P times Q, which is revenue, is going to be exactly equal to quantity times average total cost, which is just total cost, which means that profit is going to be equal to 0. So more of Bill's friends are going to keep entering this market all the way until the supply curve, until the amount of milk in the grocery store is such that the supply curve shifts out enough where the price is going to be exactly equal to average total cost, and no one makes any profit in a perfectly competitive equilibrium. And I've sort of just shown this and talked about it intuitively. So if this is still confusing, drop a comment below. But if you're finding these videos helpful, first, please let me know. And then if you haven't yet, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time for another case of econ struggles.